If you're a street photographer, you're likely looking for a small, compact, incognito camera with a lot of versatility. So who in their right mind would spend $7,000 for a big heavy camera that has a fixed lens and only goes to f4? Well, that's exactly what I thought at first, but after trying this, I'm kinda tempted to buy it. Let's talk about it. So this right here is the Fujifilm GFX100RF. I've been using this as my street photography and everyday camera for over the past month, and I have some thoughts about it. But first, let's get a couple specs out of the way. It's a 102 megapixel medium format camera with a 4:3 aspect ratio sensor. This lens is a fixed 35mm f4, so if you're converting it to full frame equivalent, that's about a 28mm f3.2. It has a 5.76 million dot EVF, and it weighs about 735 grams. Other than those features, the GFX100RF is in most ways pretty much like a super beefed up X106. You still have the same dual dial on the top for shutter speed and ISO, you have your autofocus toggles on the back of the camera, you're still getting a leaf shutter, the top and bottom plates are completely milled out of aluminum, and even the battery door is aluminum, so it feels very nice and solid. You still have that control ring on the front for controlling film sublimations or white balance. Side note, Fujifilm, if you're watching this, let us customize this ring for more uses. I would love to be able to put something like ISO on it. You actually have two card slots now on the side of the camera. It still has that flip up screen instead of the tilt out vlog style screen, which I prefer. You still have the multifunctional control lever on the front, which is not like the X106, it's more like the XE5. With this control lever, you actually have 4 functions. You can push it to the left for one function, push it to the right for a second, hold it to the left for a third, and then hold it to the right for a fourth. And then you can also click down on the button in the middle. And you have a new toggle on the front of the camera, which is a dedicated teleconverter. Like I mentioned, this is a 35mm, but with that toggle, you're able to crop into 45, 63, and 80mm. So in full frame equivalents, you're getting about a 28mm, 35mm, 50mm, and 63mm equivalent. And then you still have a built-in 4-stop ND filter. Now, while this body style is pretty much just like a bigger X106, there's one dial on the back which I think makes it its standout feature and completely differentiates it from the X106, and that's their new aspect ratio dial. So it's exactly what it sounds like. You're able to turn it and control the aspect ratios of your photos. So you have 9 different aspect ratios to choose from. You have 4:3, which is the native aspect ratio of the sensor. You have 3:2, which mimics full frame equivalents. You have 16:9, which gives a widescreen movie look. You have 65:24, which gives the legendary X-Pan panoramic look. You have 17:6, which is very similar to 65:24 and makes the scene look super wide. You have 3:4, which is great for trying to get more frames out of a regular roll of 35mm film, and it's actually the native Instagram aspect ratio now. You have 5:4, which is used in large format cameras like 8:10 and 4:5. 1:1, which is known for that perfect symmetrical aspect ratio, and 7:6, which is like a mix of 1:1 and 5:4, and it's used in a lot of commercial projects to personal projects. Now, Fujifilm has done this because you have so many megapixels to be able to crop to all these different aspect ratios and still keep a ton of resolution. They definitely could have made it for the XE5 and the X106, but then I think Fujifilm didn't want to sacrifice the resolution that much, because when you're switching to different aspect ratios, you are going to be losing a decent amount of resolution. Now, this aspect ratio isn't new. I tested the GFX100 Mark II, and I know the GFX100S also is able to change the aspect ratios on those cameras, but I think Fujifilm made a dedicated dial for the GFX100RF because this is meant to be more of like a street photography or everyday camera, and in a bunch of scenarios like that where you're always shooting different subjects, you're going to want to be able to pick the perfect aspect ratio for that specific shot, where with the GFX100 Mark II and the GFX100S, I think you're going to be a little bit more intentional with the shots that you're trying to make, and when you switch to that aspect ratio, you're probably sticking to it for that whole shoot. Now, my personal favorite aspect ratio here is 65:24, and if you've been following my channel for a while, you know that I love my anamorphic lenses, and I've even been doing some anamorphic photos from time to time, and this 65:24 aspect ratio mimics that. Now, I was really excited to try this out. Full disclosure, Fujifilm did send me this camera to test out, but I am not getting paid for anything, and they have no control over this video at all, so all thoughts are my own. But I was really excited to try this out because of 65:24, because I really wanted an X-Pan camera. But X-Pan cameras aren't exactly cheap, and then you still have the added cost of buying film and getting that film developed and scanned. Now, that's not to say that the GFX100RF is cheap. They're pretty much like the same price as the X-Pan cameras, but you obviously have the added benefit of shooting digital, being able to work with RAW files as well as JPEG files. You have the benefit of not having to pay for film. You have all the film simulations and all those other features. And if you've never tried the X-Pan or anamorphic look for photos and videos, I definitely recommend you give it a try. It just has that widescreen look that's super unique that most cameras can't do unless you crop it in post, and it just makes everything look super cinematic and like a movie. movie. Now besides just 65:24, I also played around with the other aspect ratios, and I think in this day and age, we forget that how much an aspect ratio can actually change the feel of a shot. With these modern cameras, we're always shooting 3:2, and then we're cropping a 3:4 for Instagram or 9:16 for Instagram reels, and we forget that different aspect ratios will change the feel of a shot. For example, if I wanted to do street photography or shoot some landscapes, I'd probably want to shoot 65:24 because it gives that widescreen look and I'm able to capture more in the image, and it also gives that super cinematic feel. But if I'm shooting more commercial portraits, maybe I want to shoot 4:5, and if I want to shoot more storytelling portraits, I might switch to 1:1. And I think this aspect ratio dial lets you be a lot more intentional with how you're shooting. Now obviously this is something you can still do in post. When I switched my aspect ratio dial, that will affect the JPEG file, so even when I send that directly to my phone, that's exactly how it will come out. In the RAW files, it also will affect that. So when I have this on 65:24 and I throw this into Lightroom, I will see that 65:24 crop, but if you go to the crop option, you can see that the crop says as shot, and that's how it was shot at 65:24. But you can also change it to original, and it'll give you that full 4:3 sensor image, which I really like because it gives you that flexibility in post. But what's different about doing that in camera versus doing it in post is that you'll be able to see exactly how it will look like in camera, and I think that experience is everything. If I'm just looking at the full 4:3 sensor, it's very hard to envision what it will actually look like once I crop in. I won't know exactly where the crop lines are, and even if I do, the experience isn't the same. Now, I know there will be times where you want to be able to see the full image sensor, so the GFX100RF actually has tools to help you with that. So by default, the GFX100RF will have black bars that will crop out the parts of your image that aren't being used. But if you push the control lever over to the right, it will show you a preview of the whole sensor, but will slightly gray out the dead parts of the frame that aren't being used. And if you push it one more time, you can still see the full image sensor, but it'll have some white bars around the aspect ratio that is being used so that it's a little bit more easy to see. Now I personally keep it on the black bar setting because I find that it's more immersive that way, and I want to just focus on exactly what the image will be captured and not worry about what's above or beneath it. But I can definitely see that there will be times where you will want to take advantage of being able to see the full image sensor size as well as the parts that are actually being used. Overall, the aspect ratio dial has been super fun to use, and honestly, I kind of want this camera just for this feature. Now, I also mentioned that this is a medium format camera, so obviously with the 102 megapixels that you're getting out of this camera, it's actually so much fun to use to be able to crop and get different shots. You can either crop when you're shooting into the different teleconverter lenses, or just crop it in post. I 100% realize that 102 megapixels is overkill for so many people, and it's definitely not something that is needed to be able to get good shots, but once you do try it out, it is very fun to use. Now, besides this being super fun to use, there are a few downsides that we do have to mention. So first, this lens is a 35mm f4, and f4 isn't exactly the fastest. Even when you go down to full frame equivalents, that's about f3.2. Now, one of the bigger selling points of medium format is that you're usually able to get very shallow depths of field with the aperture. For example, Fujifilm's 55mm f1.7 in full frame equivalents, that's about a 43mm f1.3. And with this at f3.2, it isn't exactly a standout feature. It's also not going to be as good in low light. Obviously, with medium format sensors with the bigger sensor size, you're still going to get great low light performance, as well as the added benefit of Fujifilm grain. I find even in high ISOs, it still looks pretty natural and doesn't look as mucky as other cameras when you push it to high ISOs. So I'm not too worried about pushing the ISO on this camera, but it obviously would be nice to be able to shoot at a lower ISO. You also don't have IBIS on it, which I actually didn't realize until recently. During my street photography session, I was able to do a bunch of slow shutter shots, both handheld and resting it on a railing, and I found that actually turned out pretty good, which I was actually surprised to find out later that it didn't have IBIS. Now, the GFX100 Mark II that I tried out a few weeks ago, it has 8 stops of IBIS, so I was very surprised to see that they didn't put IBIS on it, and I definitely wish that they would have. I think that would have been especially useful for a camera like the GFX100RF, where it's more meant to be a street photography or everyday camera, and you're probably not going to be putting this on a tripod, so definitely having IBIS on something that you're going to be hand holding for most of the time would have been super useful. Overall, I think that while there are cons, and definitely a lot of people are hating on the f4 as well as no IBIS, I do think that those downsides haven't really swayed me enough to not want this camera. I think that, again, the aspect ratio dial by itself has been such a huge game changer and it's so much fun to use that I literally want it just for this reason. Obviously, it is $7,000, so I don't know if I can justify yet, but I will be thinking about it definitely for sure. I do have a Japan trip coming up next year, and this honestly would be so nice to be able to use in that scenario. I also realized that this camera is going to be way out of the price point for a lot of people, but I do think that if you do have the chance to try it out, I definitely do recommend it because it's so much fun to use. So yeah, I want to know what you think. Is this the best street photography camera that you can buy right now? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, remember to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to see more photo video content, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.